Hi, and welcome to the 2-Minute Warner. I'm your host, Harry Busby. The 2-Minute Warner is brought to you by the West Side Gazette, South Florida, one of South Florida's oldest African-American newspapers. And my co-host tonight is the publisher of the West Side Gazette, Mr. Bobby Henry. Bobby, how you doing, my brother?
I am terrific and getting better. Thank you, Perry.
Thank you.
Like I said, man, as always, you break the ice with me, give me a chance to come on down. Sometimes, I do. I have butterflies every time we do this show, so I have to get myself. I know I have to get myself under control. So when you give me that leeway, when you do me that way, it gives me a chance to get right. So I appreciate that. But I'm good, man. How about you?
Man, I'm doing good. I can't complain either, and I wouldn't. It's not my nature.
Okay. Yeah, we're about to get into this. Well, we're into this political season. This week, the West Side Gazette gave out its endorsements. Not gave them out, but how do I say this? To those who earned the endorsements, they were fulfilled with the endorsement of the West Side Gazette. And we started off with the school board of Broward County. And if you've been reading the West Side Gazette, you know how we have been trying to bring some light to a very dark situation. So the endorsements were probably some of them expected, and there were some that were not expected. And so do us a favor. You could pick up your copy of the West Side Gazette, or you can go online and read it, but whichever way you do it, get a copy and see who we endorse for this, what I want to say, maligned school district. Is that too harsh?
Nah, it's the truth.
Okay. And we want to say the truth, bring the truth. So
Yeah, and speaking of bringing light to dark situations, I've had a pretty interesting week myself in just getting to understand and learn voting. As I say, I think there is not a part of voting that we can ever say that we fully understand. We have to constantly understand this process. And had an opportunity this week to be in attendance virtually during the Leadership Blue Conference in Orlando. I attended one of the seminars of a group that has started that I know most people wouldn't give two blinks of their eye at. It's the Florida Data Directors Council. And the name itself sounds like just something that isn't interesting. But it's made up of individuals who are interested in looking at the data in our elections. This was a Democratic group, and out of that conversation this week, one of the things that we learned is even in the recent redistricting, there have been updates to our precincts. And more of that information is going to be available to you. In fact, I have that information available now. I have the data available now. And I had an opportunity to meet for those who are in the Democratic circles and know about a tool called VAT. Had a chance to meet the guy who created that tool. And we had a very interesting conversation about its impact and the lack that in all of these data meetings that they have not had anyone from Broward other than myself, who is not a part of the damn party, in terms of its infrastructure, and a few other gentlemen who have attended. And so what I said to them is that I would help make this data available, because it is available. So before the night's over, I'm going to give you my email. I'm going to give you my phone number. If you're an organization, you're a campaign, and you want to understand how to better understand your community, give me a holler. And that's all I'm going to say about it.
Oh man, that's good. You know,
That's all I'm going to say about it.
so maybe they should stay tuned for the 2 minute warning more often. For the
We're just going to give information.
Give information. That's what
we're just going to give information.
Yeah. That's the key. Information is important. Now I know that probably some of our viewers are just leaving the debate between our guest later on tonight, Commissioner Nikki Fried, I'm sorry, and Congressman Charlie Crist. Well, we're going to have Commissioner on the show after we do some local stuff that we need to get into. We got some local elections coming up and some people who are vying for our local seats. And it just so happened that in District 3, that's Fort Lauderdale, the city of Fort Lauderdale, District 3. And some folk refer to it as the 33311. Not necessarily so. This is much broader than that when you look at it on the whole. So we're not going to limit our thoughts or our subjugation to just that. So if we can, I want to just tell you a little bit about our next guest. What do you think we should bring the moderator who's going to help us with this? Hold up for a minute. What you want to do? Okay.
You take it. Yeah,
cool.
Go ahead.
All right, we'll bring our next guest on, and then we'll bring in our special moderator with us. Our next guest is a proud resident of Broward County, and she's from Lake Air, which is another subdivision or housing part of Fort Lauderdale. She has done some extensive travel. She is a data person, if you will. Economics is her thing, understanding it and the need for understanding what it means to grab land and gentrification and some other stuff. But right now she's a candidate for again, the city of Fort Lauderdale, District 3. So if we can we bring on Dr. Nadine Hankerson? Hey.
How you doing, Dr. Hankerson?
I am doing fabulous.
Okay. Doc, you're no stranger to politics or running. Give us a little bit about you as it pertains to your interests and the need for you to run in this position.
Well, this is, again, not my first rodeo. I ran for this position in 2009 against Bobby DuBose. And at the time, I was returning to Fort Lauderdale to take care of elderly parents. And while I was here, I thought it was important that you must give back to the community. I've been blessed to have an extensive background in foreign and domestic and international understanding of how the world works, how community works. I did a PhD in conflict analysis and resolution about the communities in South Florida. So my experiences and my knowledge in working with international groups, immigrants, as well as poverty pimps and the like, I have invested a lot of my own personal time in researching and grabbing the raw data on what affects Black folks in their communities. So I am back at the table again. And I want to add, when I lost that race, I came back and I worked diligently to make sure that the folks who were a part of the city of Fort Lauderdale's inner city understanding that just because you don't win don't mean you stop working. You have to continue to work. So if you are here for community, then you need to be here for community, not here to run a race, not here to collect money, because the bottom line is money is not what you need. You need vote and you need voter participation. So I'm back again asking for votes to come to the table so that we can make a difference in the lives of our citizens, because we fought for single member districts, and remember, single member districts can only get you one vote at the table. So you need some other skills, and negotiation is one of those that we need to be able to bring to the table with some real data to start addressing some of the needs of our people in this community.
Okay, Dr. Hankerson, it's ironic that, okay, good evening, Q. You got some comments coming in. It's ironic that when you ran before, you ran against Bobby DeBose. Now, in this race, I understand that his wife, Miss Yvette DeBose, is in the race. So I want to ask you, and have you reached out or spoke to any other of the candidates in this race?
Well, I know them all except I think the young lady out in Melrose Park. But in terms of speaking with them about the election, no. My goal is to make sure that whoever wins, win, lose, or draw, is that they will continue to work on behalf of the community and to make sure that what we do moving forward will be for the greater good. We have not taken the time to really truly understand what shared responsibility means for a community. And so the pimping needs to come to an end. The poverty pimps need to understand that it takes more than just a conversation. It takes some real understanding on what is happening to our communities. And if we don't start doing something now, what we are calling community will no longer exist.
Mm-hmm. And there's a viewer, Victoria Olson says, to tell her what position you're running for. We know. Go ahead.
The position is the district is City Commission, District 3. It is the seat that Robert McKenzie will be vacating in November.
What do you see, Dr. Hankerson, as three of the most pressing issues as it pertains to this district or the city in a whole?
Well, one of the very pressing issues is community predators. We have so many folks who are saying that they are fighting for community, yet they are giving away our land. They're giving it away is because they lack the understanding on what predators do in community. We still have Jim Crow lenders that are out there. We still have a Jim Crow system that is working, which is what I call I don't want to take all the credit, because in literature, you have to make sure that you give people credit. But the bottom line is we have a racist system culture, and we could put white supremacy in front of it, but it is a system culture that is operating on behalf of those who don't want Black folks at the table. And if we're going to change things, we're going to have to begin to understand the economic dynamics that goes with political access and political containment. So until we begin to teach and understand what is required, and one of the major things is raw data. We are sitting now with an African American research library that is being underutilized because scholars like myself, as well as others that are out there, should be at the table bringing in information so that we can better understand the policies that's been placed before us to know exactly what is going on. Black land matters. It matters. So if we begin to take a look at it, as well as taking a look at some of the senior issues around town, we don't have, and we got to stop using the word affordable housing because it doesn't exist. So if we understand the economics about housing, then we can start having real conversations on a political standpoint so that we can provide what is needed in order to place our folks in proper housing within communities and don't lose the strengths within our communities.
There's a viewer that's asking this question. Ms. Dixon, like she says, I would like to ask Dr. Hankerson why, with her extensive experience, does she think she lost last time and what will be different this time?
Well, I lost last time because folks don't vote. And here's why they don't vote. So let me say, I lost in a race that had over 30,000 people in the community because I'm very much a numbers person. I'm an econometrician by degree. And therefore, what I will tell you, at 1,350 people voting with 3 or 4 candidates in the race, I think we need some more people to come to the voting booth. So it doesn't require money from downtown. It requires people getting out to vote. So if a candidate, no candidate has ever won this position with more than 1,350 on a vote. So we don't have to reach out to but a few people. My goal was to reach out to more than a few. I'm wanting to bring in others who must participate in this process in order for us to be able to have a voice at the negotiation table. So what I'm saying is, I can only tell you I lost because we just chose not to come to the polls. And if you look at the numbers that we have now across the board, we have close to about 4,000 African Americans within our district, in the new dividing district. We have an additional about 2,400 Caucasians that are now in our district. We have others, and you know how others cross the line. Others cross the line from being, you know, some of us don't want to be Black. We want to be something other, and they may be other. So there's another 4,000 something others, and there's another Hispanic population that got cut into the district of about 42 or 4,300 people. So those people who were in unincorporated areas that are people of color that should have been brought in on behalf of a single member district, then we would have had better numbers. So hopefully by 2024, we are still sitting at the seat. But unless we start participating in a process that is supposed to work for the greater good, then we're going to end up with limited to no vote or voice.
Dr. Hankerson, would you say that the current composition of the dais, that there's no appetite to discuss these issues, or is it that no one has taken the lead to help direct that discussion?
Well, I think some of it is a combination of all what you said. Leadership is a very important entity. And oftentimes, when leadership comes to the table and they are not members of Club Acquiesce, then you are then labeled and given all these different things or accolades that's associated with unkindly thoughts. Then we don't take the time to be able to sit down to the table to have those level of discussion. Sometimes, you know, we just have to be honest. We choose people who just don't have capacity. They just don't know. And so if you don't know, you depend on somebody else. And if you're doing back table discussions, and those table discussions begin to talk about issues that you may not be familiar with, that you may not have studied, and that you don't understand and may be too proud to ask, then you end up voting for some things that may not be in our best interest.
Okay. Ms. Hankerson, I see one of our viewers, Ms. Greaves. She asked the question: what is your vision regarding the housing situation in regards to the homeless?
Well, housing is one of those issues that we're going to have to begin to explain to our people, is that housing is associated with policy. And the policies on how they are currently written in the United States does really not leave room for those who are looking for housing, for at least the poor or the near poor. So you have the housing administration that took place in the early 70s for veterans, for Army veterans, Army-related families, as well as some homeless, but a great part of for non-whites. And while blacks, the economics of it all, until we remove the cap that is related to municipal housing that is provided by government, and those caps are there for a reason. And when those caps, which is a part of the Faircloth Amendment, when you go and take a look at the Faircloth Amendment, then you can understand why government and municipalities don't really build. And when they build on formulas that is designed for housing for public and private lenders. Those public and private lenders build on costs. So when they build on costs, if that cost parameter comes back and say A, B, C, D, and your money don't say A, B, C, D, then it is unaffordable housing. And so right now, what we are building is unaffordable housing.
Let me ask you this, okay? You mentioned earlier, you said something about the affordable housing. There's no such thing as affordable housing.
No.
Okay, could you go into that a little bit?
Well, again, you have to go to the Faircloth Amendment and remove the caps so that government and local, city, and state municipalities can build upon that so that your tax dollars will only go so far. It can build those. If they place caps on them, then they can't build beyond those caps. So then it goes to the public and the private lenders. And those public and private lenders build for profit. So if you build for profit and it costs you X number of dollars in order to put up a facility, then they are not, and even when it becomes subsidized, because when it comes to poor people, it is considered an entitlement. But when rich folks got it, it's a subsidy. So these things are coming to us as entitlements, not as subsidies.
Okay.
You know, again, Dr. Hankerson, you know, the constituents in this district probably could be in anybody's district. So how do you what's your plan for communicating with the folk in this district?
Well, with the onset of COVID, it's difficult, or let me just say, it will, most folks don't want folks just knocking on their door, and I can understand that, especially for those who may be ill or who've had COVID. So the whole COVID ordeal. But if there are social media networks that are out there that we can use to try to reach our community. But again, our community have been lied to so much until learning how to rebuild truth is a very hard dynamic. We've had Chapter 163, which was a state ordained that money was supposed to be given to blight communities. We also had annexation where money was supposed to be given for blight and slum. They end up being annexed into District 2, which was a part of the Negro District. Let's be clear that the city of Fort Lauderdale in 1941 had an ordinance called the Negro District. That district has coordinates, is laid out, is lined out in terms of what was supposed to be about the Black community. We are now losing a large part of what we have in our Black communities, especially our historic, or what we feel are historic facilities in our communities, like the Elks. The else is now in litigation, and that's something that I'm limited to some degree to talk about, but not limited degree to say that we have predators, both our own community people as well as our Jim Crow lenders. And we also have within our community, we haven't talked about the CRA money, how that money has been distributed from the very onset, going from the Northwest District. Remember, we were once Negroes, went from the Negroes to the Northwest. Now we Flagler and Progresso. You know, somewhere along the line, somebody needs to tell the truth. And the truth needs to be told. Some things need to be rectified, and the greater good needs to be looked upon, because the Blacks of Broward County has contributed greatly to its history, and the shoulders that we all stand on spent many days and many hours, I know my parents had, in wanting to make this a better place for all folks. So I'm thinking that Black people play a major role here, and that we should respect that, stand up and fight for it. Not every time an issue comes, you want to hide under the table, or you got very little to say, or you only complain, but don't get out there to do what is necessary in order to change the game. Sometimes you buy in too much that we become a prisoner to a process. And some folks are prisoner to the process and can't explain their way out other than their own 30 pieces of silver. So we've got to do better in regards to that.
You know, we got some very interesting conversations in the chat, Dr. Hankerson. Maria Mary Martin, Broward County School Board candidate, she says, could you further explain partnership for public low-income housing that includes state, county funds, but has a private corporation like Pinnacle as the lead? That's one. You got a battle going on in between Victoria Olson and Oscar Reed. There was another question to ask, but let's deal with that one first. Could you further explain partnership for public low-income housing that includes state and county funds, but has a private corporation like Pinnacle as the lead?
Well, you can say the city housing authority. Those things are public and private entities. They have their own boards, even CRAs. They have their own boards. The boards just happen to be the city of Fort Lauderdale commissioners, which I think is a direct problem that is a conflict of interest. But again, I don't write the laws. I just try to understand them and look for the best alternative for moving us forward. But there's a lot of housings around here, that housing within Broward County, that are both public and privately owned.
Okay, there was another question here, and it came from, again, from Ms. Black. She said, you mentioned removing the caps. Is this realistic and likely to happen in this climate? If so, how do you propose to approach that in a way that affects the poor now?
Well, that wouldn't be a job that the city in itself would have to move towards, looking at some of our other legislative people who are at the federal level. So the state has a voice, the local has a voice. That voice goes to our state representative, and our state representatives, along with us, we can go direct or indirect to our federal levels and start making some requests, or taking a look at what's at the table in terms of the rules that we must follow in order to do it. We may or may not be at our cap. So then that would mean taking a look at a different kind of housing. There are social housing models. That's why these things come with a model that is based upon, that has data and history that is there, as well as municipal housing. We have to take a look at the current models that are already out there, and do they actually, when you plug in the numbers, fit and meet our needs? So we must study these models and determine which model best can fit a situation that's there, because one size may not fit all. You never see a model that's set up on the beach and say, look, we're going to build some housing out on the beach. We're going to put high income Black folks and others who may have needs subsidies in order to move in, but we can build that housing there with a partnership. But what happens is they build ghettos in the community when it does not culturally fit the group of people that is there, because what happens is we end up with repeated greens. And then when the repeated greens come, the only thing we get is how to build a jailhouse economy. The police are there 24/7, back and forth. You can barely sleep at night for the ambulance and the police running up and down and up and down. Some things are culturally inherited to a group of people. And again, we are not taking a look at any of the variables that may be culturally inherited to a group of people. And if we do that, we might be able to build housing with purpose and build a model that's designed and implemented within our local government that we can place a model to. These models are not etched in stone. It's about understanding how they fit and how they are designed. The same way with you going to the bank. You know, banking structures are designed for ain't no making it. Everybody don't get an opportunity to go to the bank. You can go. But certain things happen in the underwriting process that they don't necessarily allow us in order to participate. So that access to that has to come with a greater understanding in community to bring those voices forward and start demanding that certain things happen for us a little differently. We might need to begin looking at the structure of what I'm running for, because it looks like that single member district's kind of running out. We only get one vote. So until we begin to start asking questions about the structures on which we operate in, which are structurally inherited, not necessarily for you, it may be for an individual, but it's past the individual. We have to begin caring enough for change that it becomes for the greater good.
Dr. Hankerson, could you put in the chat how someone can get in contact with you? We got to come back and revisit this conversation. I'm not sure if I'm going through the chats now and see if we. Ms. Greaves again says it's definitely a conflict of interest and only assists who they choose to.
That's correct.
Okay. So put that in there. And while you're doing that, Dr. Hankerson, we're gonna bring in Corey.
Okay, yeah, we can. We have a guest panelist with us tonight as we head into the second half of our show. He is Brooklyn born, Broward raised, an alum of Branch Ely and of Georgetown University. Mr. Corey Alexander Shearer, upon graduating from Georgetown, brought his talents back to South Beach and has been working tirelessly within the professional community. He's been a contractor with companies such as Westinghouse Communities and working as a defense contractor on, some really high tech and out of this world. And I mean that literally. He's been working on some satellite projects since he's been here. But he's also the outreach lead for Engage Florida and the Southeast Regional Director for the Democratic Black Caucus of Florida. And so we're proud to bring him on and get his insight as we head into this second phase. Mr. Corey Shearer, how you doing?
Hey, good afternoon, good evening, I should say, brothers. Doing pretty well. I'm going to say, we usually say Blanche Ely High School. I'm going to say that. But other than that, you were spot on, sir. Spot on.
Yes.
So I'm glad
Hold
to be
for
here.
a second. Let's do this. Dr. Hankerson,
Yes.
in exiting, can you leave us with 1 point of your platform or your mantra, if you will?
Well, I'm going to say first and foremost, vote for me. I think I'm the candidate for the job. And I want you to care enough for change. You guys have a blessed evening, and I'm sure you'll see me on the trail. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hankerson.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Hankerson. Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, and did you put your information in the chat? That's in the chat, right?
Yeah, I think so. Let's see.
Okay. All right.
You want me to put my info, you're saying?
Well, you can, Corey, but I wasn't talking to you, man.
Okay, so all right, there you go. I just assume you're always talking to me, Bobby Henry Sr.
No, it's good. It's good, Corey. Thank you very much, man, for joining us. We're really looking
Dr.
forward
Hankerson,
to.
I'm telling you, truth to power. You need truth to the people. You know, we need to hear it. So
Yeah.
that was quite interesting.
Corey, you got a very interesting background, and you've done some very interesting stuff. And I know I can't wait to read a piece that you have penned.
Yes, sir.
And working on it, and I want to bring it to our readers, but we'll hold up on that. So what's new, Corey? What's going on, bro?
Yeah, I tell you, when you look at it, some of this is more the same, right? But I would say coming out of the pandemic, people are realizing that you can't just tell them who to vote for. You can't just tell them what to think anymore. So people have time to actually watch and read and learn and pay attention. We have to get out to people and answer their questions that they have. We have to go door to door, meet with our neighbors. And we're realizing that government can hurt you, right? Government can cause pain, can cause you to lose confidence. It can cause you to feel sometimes psychologically neglected, right? And cause physical and mental harm. And we're seeing that. And I think people are realizing that, government is of the people, made to protect the people. We're realizing, though, that, we're not going to settle for the okie doke anymore. People are really looking at who are these electeds, even amongst us, who are these candidates amongst us, and what will their term in office mean in our daily lives and the lives of our children and those who are not yet born. One thing I do want to underscore is obviously with tonight's debate, we got a chance to see the comparisons and contrasts between two candidates on the Democratic primary side who at least are willing to talk on issues that affect everyday people. They're willing to stand up and state their case. In the case of the governor that we have now, he likes to have it his way, and he usually doesn't open up for debate. He's a hard person to talk to, from what I've understood. He's somebody who'll turn his back on you and then turn back around when he wants to deliver a verbal blow at you. I don't know how he gets away with that, and I don't know how we're going to continue to allow, as Floridians, for a governor that wants to be tyrannical and in some cases terrorize certain parts of the populace while he elevates others, even if they ask not to be so elevated.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Can we put Dr. Hankerson information back in the chat? We have Ms. Grant.
I didn't remove it, just so you know. I didn't touch it.
Not you, Corey. That's you. We're speaking to the back office. Yeah. Okay, so we are still waiting for Commissioner Fried. Okay. Pop, it goes the week.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's quite all right. Good evening, Commissioner. How are you?
I am doing well. How about you guys tonight?
Well, we are terrific and getting better.
You for joining us.
Of course. I'm honored to be part of this conversation tonight.
Okay.
That was a tremendous debate, by the way, or actually a conversation that kind of turned out as you both stated your case and allowed for robust discussion to be taking place around that in people's households tonight. That's better for our state.
And that's important. That's why I've had asked for more debates because truly this is the only way that you can really see the two of us. And we've had forums, but the forums are for really not really live streamed. It's smaller groups, but this was an opportunity to really see who we all are, see the differences, see the issues that are out there. And there was a lot of things that we didn't talk about, such like, race issues and some of the things on criminal justice reform. There's a lot of education didn't make it into the conversation tonight, which is why having more debates is necessary to hear our opinions and our perspectives on so many of those issues.
Well, Commissioner Fried, hopefully we'll allow you to have those discussions right now. So
Perfect.
a little post-debate, foray into those topics.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to kick off with, I guess, one that's not, so political, but you are the Commissioner of Agriculture. For someone who has lived in the concrete jungle of the urban community, what is the Commissioner of Agriculture and how important is that to their life?
That is a fantastic question because most people have no idea. When I ran in 2018, people said, we have a Commissioner of Agriculture and it's elected. And so we spent a lot of time really educating. And so why this position is so important. First and foremost, we oversee agriculture, which has 2 million people across our state that work inside the department, inside of agriculture, $380 billion of economic impact to our state. We export to around 130 countries around the world. And so agriculture, we feed 150 million people around the country every single year. So just agriculture itself is essential for our state. Outside of just that, also we oversee its agriculture and consumer services. So we oversee the school nutrition program. And during this pandemic, you saw our agency move into action. That when the announcement came that the schools were going to be closed on that Friday and no school on Monday, it was my department who worked around the clock all weekend to lift up programs all across our state to make sure that our kids were still being fed while our schools were closed. Our food banks, the lines and the access to the food went through obviously the roof on demand. We were working with the federal government to make sure we're bringing down more money, more resources so we can feed our families. We oversee the concealed weapons permitting program. This is also hugely important to our state. There is about 2.2 million Floridians that have a concealed permit, the largest program in the nation. And prior to me, it was kind of the NRA had a lot of power, a lot of say of who got them, who didn't. If somebody had an issue with a background check, they kind of weaseled their way in to still get it done. So I came in and kicked the NRA out of my office, made sure that everybody had a complete and thorough background check. So that literally is saving lives. We regulate about 20,000 different entities across our state, from our food stores to our convenience stores. So making sure that it's clean and everything is sanitary there. We oversee all of our nonprofit organizations to make sure people aren't being defrauded. We oversee fraud at the gas station, fair rides. The list goes on. And the reality is that what we do every single day actually impacts people's lives. And of course, I'm a member of the Board of Trustees, the state, a member of the cabinet, and a member of the clemency board. So all of those really are things that impact people's lives on a pretty consistent basis.
Yeah, one I found very interesting. I didn't know that the Agriculture Commission oversaw the registration legislation of private investigators.
Yep.
So that's quite interesting. But in terms of what the Agricultural Commission has done, I noticed that you have a healthy food financing. And one of the things I was looking at is healthy food financing helps to restore or rehab places for in food deprived or food deserts. How is that process going? Because I have spoken with several nonprofit organizations who do community gardening. So what they're saying is that even in that space, they're finding that the corporate wholesale distributors are outpacing them even in their ability to do that. So how can the commission help those community organizations who are truly based and working not just to provide a healthy nutrition, but also putting the residents to work?
Yeah, I mean, what we've been doing is really lifting up those programs, and bringing light to them. And there is a program of down in right in Overtown, that has, not only a community garden but a restaurant that is right next to it. And there was, a time when they were about to lose the land, and so we got to come in there and help them either to relocate the garden, but making sure that there was resources there and that we were lifting up those voices. And we've been doing that all over the state. It is going around visiting gardens. We actually just started probably about 2-3 months ago what we call unity gardens. So it was taking it a step further because we are seeing, again, there's so much divisiveness in our state and our country right now. People aren't talking to each other. And so we saw a way that to really to unite people. We gave out free seeds, to people all across the state. I think we gave out almost 100,000 plus packets of seeds all over the state, because it's so important to teach people how to grow. Because once somebody is involved in agriculture and sees the fruits of their labor, they're inspired, they're engaged, they want that healthy meals. And especially for our children, seeing that a tomato actually grows on a vine and not in a can, is really important. And so we are doing our best to make sure that we are uplifting those, because look, we've got right now 3.5 million Floridians that are food insecure, and almost 1 million plus are children. And so we know that if people can't eat, they are eating processed food, which then hurts their effectiveness and efficiency in the workforce. Health concerns, and certainly if a kid, can't find food, and the only meal they get is lunch, they can't learn. And if they're not learning in school, then it takes them back and they can't succeed either. So making sure that we're working with our community gardens, uplifting our new program, the Unity Gardens, and working with our schools to put good quality, nutritious food, has been one of my pillar issues in my administration.
Okay, I got a couple. Let me see if I can do this thing two ways. Okay, 2 questions. Number one, there is an African American candidate for your seat, Naomi.
Yep.
Will you support Naomi?
So I talked to all of the candidates, because it is, I'm trying to stay out of primaries. I've made that promise to all candidates, not only in my seat, but across the board, that I won't get engaged in primaries. But certainly I've had lots of conversations with Naomi. In fact, at the Black Caucus, this past weekend at Leadership Blue, I had Naomi on stage with Ayala Aramis, who is running for Attorney General, as well as our CFO candidate, Adam Hattersley. And all 4 of us were standing together. And I may have walked over from the podium and I said this, and I put my arms around everybody. I said, this could be your ticket, for November. So while I am not endorsing, I am going to say that it certainly is time for women to step up and lead our state.
Okay. My other question is this. Now we coming from Miami, you understand diversity. You were brought up in it. Now, in terms of diversity and equal or equitable amount of financial support for businesses, what, if any, is your plan for giving an equal playing field for Black businesses within your prairie as a
This is essential. Look, here's what's happened: that we white politicians and elected officials keep going back to the Black community, asking for you to vote, asking for you to vote, asking for you to vote, and you never get a return on that vote. And I understand that what's happened. And so I look at things from a very different perspective, because you're right. I grew up in Miami. I was a past public defender in Alachua County. I have seen the despair and the inequities that happens in our education system, happens in our business community, certainly I mean, we can go into a whole nother soapbox about the criminal justice system, but the recognition that so much can be solved if we're investing in our communities, lifting up our small businesses, making sure that right now you're looking at state contracts. State contracts, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars that is given out to our small businesses every single year. Do you know that there is a ceiling of 8%, 8% that go to Black owned businesses? I don't know where they came up with the 8% number, but we got to get rid of that and make sure that we truly are putting that money to lift up our small businesses. I also want to create economic councils in regions all over the state where the councils actually have a wide section of people that are on there. You know, somebody that from in the Black community that is an accountant, an attorney, an entertainer, an entrepreneur in IT or business, marijuana industry, and become almost mentors. Because look, I started my own practice, but I'm an attorney. I knew where to look. I knew how to fill out forms. I knew what, how to know that there's a difference between an LLC and a PA. If you are just starting out and you don't have mentors, you don't even know where to look. And so we create these councils that are regionalized that allow people to know that there's somebody that they can go to, and they have workshops and apprenticeship programs. We really are going to be able to start creating that generational wealth that is long overdue in our Black community. And so I've got an entire economic proposal and plan that is geared directly for the Black community that, given my chance and opportunity, will be able to be implemented when I'm governor.
Corey, you got a question, but before you ask your question, I see one of the viewers is asking the commissioner, how many of your top staff and department heads are Black?
Thank you for that question. So when I first came in to commissioner, there was two minorities in leadership positions. We are now at 12. So this was an important task for me to make sure that we are lifting up Black voices inside the Department of Agriculture. And I did the same thing inside of my campaign, that I've got high up leadership inside of the campaign. And I've also created the first ever Black Advisory Council. And the Black Advisory Council isn't our elected officials, the ones that always have a seat at the table. It is the people that are doing the work on the ground. So it is community leaders. It is people that have been doing things like food insecurity, those that are working inside of the communities themselves. Those are on my Black Advisory Council. So we have made sure that we are creating diversity in our state. I created the first ever diversity and inclusion director. And so that's something, again, was very important to me. I had the first ever LGBTQ plus director was also Black. And so this was an important thing for me to make sure that my department truly resembles that of the state.
And to that question on number of staff, are you completely staffed, or has the department halted hiring?
Nope. Well, look, there's always openings inside the Department of Agriculture. Are you looking for a job?
Well, I asked that because I went to your website and just figured you would like to know that your website says that there are no opportunities available statewide.
Interesting. Look, most of the leadership positions are full, but we always have other positions as far as our agriculture law enforcement, forestry, our regulators, our call center staff. So I'll see why it's not on our exact website, those positions. I don't know but we are definitely not in a hiring freeze. We are hiring people all the time. So if you want a job, let me know.
Sounds like some positions might be open after your website is in.
And I'm jumping on the site to apply as well. But before going to actually our job opportunities, I want to talk about livelihoods. And so my question really pertains to, and I don't know the numbers. I know numbers nationally. I think African American farmers, right, have lost about $300 billion of valuation in their lands. They've had inability to have access to certain grant programs, and definitely the COVID relief funding. They've had they're missing and lacking an opportunity, as promised, to meet with President Biden at this point. And they make up roughly only now like 1.5% of the producers in this nation. After, of course, African Americans in our history, right? Of course, we're very involved, right, against our will initially in this country, and then using our skill set and our abilities, outpacing others. If you can speak a little bit to what the situation is in Florida, how are you addressing the concerns of African American farmers who said that they have been left out and have shown a lot of evidence? It looks to me that they've been left out. How are you addressing that? How have you addressed it? What plans do you have as governor that you'd be able to really speak to the needs of the African American farmers and grow those skilled individuals and families?
It's really actually quite heartbreaking to see what's happened to our Black farmers, and not just the state of Florida, but across the country. I think that in our state, we used to have tens of thousands of Black farmers, and now I think the number is like 250. It is pretty atrocious. And so what we've been able to do inside, my 3.5 years, one, recognize that there was a problem and lift it up, because until I became commissioner, I never heard anybody talking about this. Previous commissioners definitely didn't talk about this. We saw that there was a problem inside the Panhandle, that there's actually a lawsuit that we are monitoring very carefully, that there's a Farm Credit Bureau that gave out, and I'm going to use a number, I don't know the exact number, but let's just say it was $100 million of loans. And 90% of those loans went to white farmers, yet 90% of the people that applied were Black farmers out in like Gadsden County. So bring light to that attention. We have spent a lot of time traveling around to our different Black farmers, asking them what they need. What are some things that need to help you get prosperous? We've had tables on saying it's needing help on grant writing. So we've tried to be a resource. And of course, we know that President Biden put forth money that was supposed to go to Black those disenfranchised farmers. So it was Black farmers, Hispanic farmers, Native Americans, even Asian farmers. And that money was set aside, I think it was like $1 billion to go and help pay off loans. And so what happens? The white farmers sue on that money. And so we were at first traveling around the state with the USDA promoting this program and giving resources and having my staff at all of these roundtables and workshops. And then, of course, it's in litigation at this point. So those are some things that we are highlighting. The other thing that I wanted to do, because I don't oversee the medical marijuana program. And again, what has happened in the medical marijuana program is disgusting. That when we created, and I'm going to say we in the pluratory, manner, not we. When they created the program, they created a mechanism that you had to be 30-year nursery with a 300,000 plant capacity. Well, 30 years ago, Black farmers didn't have access to that type of capital to get that much land to have that type of capacity. And so they were not even allowed to apply. They're allowed to, but they would not be qualified to apply for the round for the medical marijuana program. And so in 2017, when enough Black farmers it came out and said, look, there's even been a federal lawsuit that is called the Pickford class lawsuit that went up against the USDA and the federal government in the 1980s. And they found that there was discrimination from the USDA on giving out money. And so we have said that, we participated in trying to get that Black farmers license out for the medical marijuana program. That went into statute in 2017. We are sitting at July 21st, 2022, and that license has still not been handed out. So we have continued to yell and to scream and to raise attention to this. But knowing that I couldn't control what was happening in the medical marijuana program, we legalized hemp. Hemp was an opportunity to create an alternative crop for our farmers. And we've seen a lot of our new Black farmers coming in and trying to do an acre here, 2 acres here to see, learn the techniques of growing hemp so that we finally get to legalization in the state of Florida, they are ready to go. And so as governor, one, making sure that there was about 12 applicants for that one Black farmer's license. One, I'd give them all out. Like all 12 of you, you get the license. If you're qualified, you're going to get the license. 2, we're going to legalize cannabis, but also, we need to make sure that we are breaking down those barriers for those Black farmers. And certainly I would continue. I don't get all, as governor, I would have more access to resources to make sure that we're training those who want to get involved in agriculture as another step for income and other types of generational wealth.
Wow. I got a couple of questions here from our different listeners. Okay, as it pertains to loud music, that law that was enacted, this person feels that this gives the police a pass to pull over African Americans, in particular brown folks, leading to unnecessary stop and frisk.
Yep.
Would you consider amending the law to include loud mufflers and pipes on vehicles?
I love that. Well, look, I was a past public defender. I saw my police reports come in that I saw three things on a pretty consistent basis. The odor of cannabis was detected. That created the probable cause. Okay. I didn't see a lot of individuals with that on the front of their police report that were white. I saw a lot of tinted windows. We know that most of those, and then that became the probable cause. And third, loud music. So those are all put there for one purpose and one purpose only, purely to pull over Black drivers and then create probable cause and find some way to arrest them for some other nonsense. So yes, I would look at ways and laws, either to equal out the field, or two, to change those laws. And not, if you're going to stop somebody from a tint, which I don't even understand why that is even a law, that there has to be something more than that in order for there to be a search.
Okay, cool. Now another viewer, I'll back off. Another viewer asked this question: what strategy does the Democratic Party have to promote Democratic candidates?
Well, I have a strategy. I have a strategy, and I talked to the Democratic
Party. It must have worked, right? We know your strategy worked.
Right, my strategy worked.
Yeah.
So here's my strategy, and it's not rocket science. You know, we as Democrats have been doing campaigns all wrong. That we are so focused on only turning out the blue that we are losing everywhere else by margins that we can't overcome. So if we are going not just to the blue areas, but we are going to purple areas and to red areas and either flipping those purple or losing by less, that is how we start to win. The other thing is that we have to have a bottom-up approach. We spend so much money at the top of the ticket and are so concerned about the U.S. Senate races and the governor's race that we forget that we're building a bench, that we have to be supporting our down ballot candidates, our House, our Senate candidates, our city and county commissioners, our school boards. I mean, DeSantis is going after school boards today. So by building that bench and sending the resources down to the bottom of the ticket, not only are we supporting our candidates. You know, I was talking to a candidate in 2020 who is out in Fort Myers. She's running for Senate. She didn't have the money to even make a website. That is what's happened here. And I was the first, when in 2018, my first TV commercials were in Fort Myers. I understood that we had to lose by less in Fort Myers. So I've got a strategy of how to support our down ballot candidates to make sure they get the resources. And I say this all the time. Can you imagine TV commercials, not just about the single candidate, but a TV commercial that has all the Democrats on the executive ticket in some of our local races, and we are on the commercial together saying, we are the Democratic Party. This is what we are going to do for you. And you see a united front on these commercials. That is a game changer. And that's what I'm pushing for. And that's why I'm running for governor, because I have a different perspective of how these campaigns are run. I have a degree from the University of Florida. I have a master's in campaigning. I know what works. I know it doesn't work. And we got to change up our strategy if we ever think we're going to take back the governor's office and the legislature.
Commissioner Fried, actually, I had a question on that. You mentioned Governor Ron DeSantis, and as I can't call him your boss, because he's definitely not that. You're elected by the people, and I won't call him a leader because I don't feel he's that. But as the head of the executive, what has it been like these number of years to work with somebody who is the head of the executive, who refuses to notify you about meetings, refuses to have some meetings because he doesn't want an American woman to have a voice, a Floridian woman to have a voice in those meetings, and then also seems to go through these moments of verbal tirades with people, and then other times of passive aggressive mumblings, like we saw with those students on the stage. What has it been like, and how have you had to stand up for yourself and stand up for Floridians with this governor?
Yeah, I really thought at the beginning, I really did, that even though we were from different parties, that we were all under the age of 50, young families, that we would find a way to work together. I've really never been so wrong in my entire life. And so it's been frustrating because I'm watching it in like my own eyes, of the nepotism, the corruption, the pure hate that comes out of his mouth, working to divide our state, and not find ways to work together across the aisles. That if you dare cross him, he's vengeful. He takes it out on businesses. He takes it out on school boards, take it out on kids. And that's not how you're supposed to govern. So it's been really hard to watch. It's been hard to watch because I know it can be different and it should be different. But that's why I'm here. I've been able to have that front row seat and call him out. Been able to show different type of leadership, that when he refused to bring down vaccines, for our kids, I was the one who was out there and talking about it. When he refused to bring down money from the SNAP benefits, last year, that would have gone to $870 million. We had to have press conference after press conference to finally force him to pull down the money. When he went MIA numerous times during the pandemic, I had to step up into leadership and to have press conferences every day, to give the information to the people of our state and to be transparent. So I took on a different role, not just as Commissioner of Agriculture, because we had somebody in our state that was leading for a very small but vocal minority. And I had to talk for everybody else and to show common sense and tried to reach across the aisle, tried to be inclusive. But we did a lot more work than probably was ever anticipated when I ran for commissioner. And even though I was the only Democrat that got across the finish line, I never in a million years anticipated the amount of other work that we had to do, because of his failed leadership.
And Commissioner, I've enjoyed this, and I would hope that our listeners wouldn't think that this was just a feel-good session. So I do want to preface that because I have a question that, and I hope it won't be the last question because I don't want to end quite on this note. But it says, it has been reported that the candidates who are running to replace you have both said that on day one that they would stop the sugarcane burn. And it's also been reported that they said that you had the power to do so, but didn't. Do you care to respond to what is reported, and what would you say to those residents who may align with that belief, and where does the truth from your purview stand?
Absolutely. So the burn program, first of all, for the entire state. So we don't segment it into specific industries. So we have the burn program, which is recognized across the world as one of the best burn programs in the world, because burning is essential for agriculture. Because if we don't manage our land, not only do you get a lot of forest fires, debris, this is something that is absolutely essential. But when we came in, we saw that the burn program had not been updated in almost 30 years. With all new technology out there, new resources, new information, new science. And so we got to work. And so much to show you how backlogged we were. When my team came together and showed me how the programs work, they brought maps, like actual maps. Things weren't even computerized. So we knew that we had a long way to go. We made two huge changes to the program, two different phases. The first phases, we're talking about air quality. The machines that even were checking for air quality that was required by the EPA hadn't been working. Like that's how backwards things were. So we had to take that first step to get the air quality stuff up and running. Then we had to make sure, because the way it was working before is that if you had a company who was doing burning, the company received a license, but the people underneath them didn't necessarily have the training and the license. So we then made sure anybody who's doing any type of burning has to go through training courses, have to have part of that. So we started working a lot of that from day one. The second part of the phase was looking at what was actually happening south of the lake where the sugarcane burning was. And back 30 years ago, the population was significantly different. And so what was happening is that if the wind blew to the, I'm going to get myself geographically to towards towards West Palm Beach, that they did not give out the permits. But if the wind was blowing to the south or to the west, then permits were given out. So we changed the zoning to make sure that, one, we were taking populations into account. We were making sure that if the wind was not blowing in the right direction, that they were able to go what's called back burning, which is a whole new program in place, that people can start back burning instead of having to burn. So what we have seen just in the last year that we've implemented that, significant declines in the amount of complaints that we've received. Is there more work to be done? Without a doubt. And so we have done a lot in just those last 3.5 years to move the program forward. And just to say stop it immediately, there's a lot of people that are employed, and a lot of this community that is literally built on this industry. And so there's two sides of this conversation. And as a regulator, and that's what they're going to see when they come into the department, that you have to make some tough decisions. They were also still talking about a large commodity, that if in fact we're talking about sugar, and if that we start to really change without this gradual phase out approach and just do it immediately, not only would you be losing a lot of jobs, a lot of economic opportunity for that community, but you would also see that the cost of sugar go through the roof, which would also then have a trickle down impact onto other types of commodities. So as a regulator, I have to come in and do these phased in approaches, so that way that we're doing good and knowing that we're in the right direction. But of course, there's so much more work to be done.
Okay. Let's do this. Commissioner, we know you had a 9 o'clock call. We kept you over the time.
Okay.
You know, and we appreciate that. There are some other things we want to ask, but in respect of your time, if you can just give us a closing thought, you and the rest of us gonna stay on because we know you stayed past your call time. So if you can give us a closing thought.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. I know your voice in our state is so important. And it's time for us to be electing leaders who want to hear that voice. And that's what I've been doing my whole life, is been serving the people of our state, showing up, listening, and making sure that everybody's got a seat at the table, and not just positions, but truly making a difference. You know, growing up in Miami, I was doing soup kitchens and Habitat for Humanity, and community service activities, to my time at the University of Florida as the first female student body president in almost 2 decades, past public defender, fighting for homeowners during the foreclosure crisis, fighting for our foster care children, fighting for public education, fighting for expansion of medical marijuana and legalization. I'm a fighter. I'm somebody who is going to always follow the needs of the people, fight for them, make sure that we're truly changing how our society works. And we are at a time right now that our democracy is on the line. We have seen congressional maps take away 2 Black representatives from our state. We have seen the anti-protest bill. We have seen voter suppression bills. Now we've got a new voting security team. I don't even know what we're calling it these days, but I call it voter suppression guard. And we've got a lot of work to do. But I'm going to ask your viewers and for you all to know that I'm our best shot. I'm our best shot to take on this guy who is literally the most dangerous person in the country. He is somebody who will destroy democracy, will take away women's rights for themselves and to choice. He will put more Black people in jail. He will take away other rights for our LGBTQ plus community. This guy is dangerous, and we've got to win. And so I'm asking everybody to put faith in me, that I have been showing up. I continue to show up. I have passion for the things that I talk about. I have passion for the people of our state, and we've got to win. And as our only statewide elected Democrat, you've seen a fierce fighter in me for 3.5 years. You've seen what I've been taking on and what I have been challenged with, and have never stopped fighting. And at the end of the day, I'm the only one who's been able to win our state since Barack Obama did it in 2012. I know that I am a proven winner, a proven fighter, and asking for the support of our voters as we get into an August 23rd primary.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fried, if I could, and I'm sorry, I know you have to leave, but as a proud, I have my Dr. Sharon Morris, my cousin, who's amazing, and my cousin Joanne, and a couple of my nieces, including my niece Kenya Warner. They're big time Gators and have
All right,
contributed.
don't make me bring out the family rattler hat.
Let me tell you one thing. As a Muslim American, I'd like to also invite you. I have to tell you, there's Al Ansar, Imam Nasser, down in Al Ansar, one of the oldest masjids or mosques in Florida. You're definitely invited there anytime. And Imam Sultan, who's a rock star and asked to do so many of the interfaith events, definitely wants to invite you to Sunrise, Florida in August at Islamic Foundation, South Florida. So
Perfect.
let me, on behalf of all Muslim Americans, I want to also make that
Absolutely.
request that we see you there at some point when you get back.
We will definitely do that, Corey. And I can't thank you enough. I know you and I have had an opportunity to talk before, and certainly what you do also for our state is so important.
Thank you. Yeah, I just saw you yesterday actually at Kings Point. So,
Yep, and yesterday at Kings Point.
All right.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. We're going to let you leave, but let's stay here. Let's everybody else stay here.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for the conversation tonight.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Now, there has some very interesting stuff going on in the chat room. I don't want to editorialize or take any privileged points, but I want us to be aware that when it comes to issues, we need to do some research, and one area in particular, as it pertains to that burning of Cain. Now, if you have not witnessed it firsthand, then maybe some of our comments might need to be toned down. But if you have witnessed it from start to finish and actually did some research on it, let's just keep some of our comments to ourselves. Big sugar is one thing, okay? Has been a problem for those, some of those who live over in the Glades, but it also has been a lifesaver. So if we don't live in the Glades or on the muck or are directly touched by that, let's be extremely careful how we put out information.
Yeah, we all know how much information is power, right? But this information, will walk the block a couple times before it gets out the gate.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a valid point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of stuff in the chat going on, and I wanted us to get a chance to talk about that. But there was some extensive research done on the cane burning, and I particularly did some research, and we had a guest on 2 weeks ago, Miss Janet Taylor, who's from the Glades, and was involved with that. But also when we comment, and I'm gonna speak directly to Oscar Reed, if you can bring his comment up, let's just be mindful when we gather as a people and we have open discussions. Let's try to be as respectable as we can to voice our opinions, be they different than others. But let's just remember now, other folk are watching and paying attention to what we say. So if we're professing to be concerned about us as a people, then let's treat us as a people with respect. So I just want to say that. Corey?
Yep. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. That was very encouraging, right? We have some choices in the Democratic Party in the primary. I thought it was telling for some reason that she didn't speak directly to some of the resources the party delivers or doesn't deliver. I think we can say that we can't wait any longer for power brokers to hold on to money and not release it to our African-American newspapers and media outlets. We don't have to bite our tongue on that. And the party needs to make sure that these resources not only get there, because they tend not to, but that they get there early, right? and ballots are being received now. Actually, on my way up, my neighbor, Miss Marilyn, amazing lady, she stopped me. Said, "Can you help me to fill out my ballot?" So I'm about to, go on a segment with Commissioner Nikki Fried, and how can we do it tomorrow? People are starting to receive their ballots, and voting is now, and yet the African American community is not getting the type of resources or the attention from the party that it needs. And I dare say some of these candidates, right? They don't want to talk on it, but I think we can talk on it. But that was very thought provoking in the sense that what she had to offer, what she has to say. We can tell that the candidates on our side actually, if they don't come from the communities that need the most assistance, they at least talk to those communities and are aware of the needs. I'll leave it there, Mr. Bobby Sr. I'll let you take it.
I think, Perry, you want to closing thought?
Wow. It's been a great evening. I have enjoyed it, listening. And as Corey says, there's much work to do, much work by candidates, much work by all who profess to say that they want to maintain this idea of democracy that we have. We have work to do. No matter what we're doing, there is still more work to do. And there is still more information to find. I just don't think that we ever get to a point where we govern by what we say we know and all we know, and we refuse to learn. There is much that we need to do to hold our Democratic Party accountable, as well as the Republican Party accountable, in both aspects of this. Even if you aren't a Republican, you should want a strong Republican Party because it sharpens the Democratic Party. That is how this works. And so it is incumbent upon us that we get everyone who is interested in this debate, in this idea about where we are and where we are going to move forward, how we are going to move forward, and who we are going to allow to speak for us.
Yep.
Yep.
If I could add just on one thing, I do want to say that, because there's no female here, right, present with us, but we all come from women, and we all know how much respect we have for them. It's unfathomable to me that we're talking to the highest ranking Democrat, and she didn't even want to really go into the specifics altogether, that she's had to fight for her right to speak and the right to be present. It's unfathomable that could continue, and that any woman or man coming from a woman would allow that to continue while DeSantis is in office right now. I'm not talking to an election. I'm talking right now. That behavior has to be, changed.
Right. I mean, and we must be mindful that even if she is victorious, it is not going to be a complete overhaul of the legislature. So that fight will only get harder, and so it will speak to who we surround, whether it be her, whether it be Chris or whoever. We have to understand this numbers game in totality, and that has to be echoed. Say what you want about Republicans being an echo chamber, the message gets where it's supposed to go.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Let me say this. I really appreciate the audience and the comments, and we all have an opinion, and opinions are what make us understand a little more if we get past, our own personal things. So I appreciate everybody, especially you, Ms. Victoria Olsen. Thank you so very much. We may differ on some things, but we agree that we have to move us forward. And that takes sometimes some hard conversations. If the farmer did not break the ground, we wouldn't have crops to eat. If the mountain was smooth as a mirror, we couldn't climb it. So I want us to understand that even though things get rough, it's only the strong that will survive. Our next week's show, we're having 3 Black female candidates for a judicial position. That's Ms. Williams, Ms. Hyde, and Ms. Early. So please join us next week as we talk to these 3 female candidates for judges. All right?
And
Go ahead.
okay, no, and before you go, a reminder, I don't know if we put my info up. If you're a candidate, if you're an organization and you trying to do voter outreach and you want to know voter information, contact me.
All right. Thank you, Corey.
Thank
gotta
you,
come back.
gentlemen, for having me on. I appreciate y'all.
Okay. Good night, everybody. I really would play some music, but Facebook, they usually cut me off. But anyway, good night all and God bless.